Hi, Nick, and thanks for being on Guy Talk. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Pleasure to see
Awesome.
you again.
Good to see you too, buddy. Good to see you too. Listen, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Venezuela, but before we get into that, I'd like to talk to you or let everybody know who you are. And so, Nick is a former Defense Intelligence Agency person. He was an analyst. He was developing intelligence. He was an intelligence planner. He was with the 82nd Airborne. We're both alumni there. We're both alumni of Special Forces. Nick was with the 5th and the 10th, and he does a lot of he did a lot of planning with the fight against violent extremist organizations. So he's pretty good with the Defense Department and so forth. So he's pretty good with talking about what we're about Venezuela and doing threat assessments and why we went into Venezuela. So let me just throw out the situation. The situation is on January 3rd, the United States entered the sovereign nation of Venezuela after months of military buildup in the Gulf of America, an active maritime drug operation. Many thought it was about oil, others thought it was about international affairs, and it's rarely that simple. So, what can you tell us about why the United States went into Venezuela?
Well, for me, it was a strategic nexus of almost all of our adversaries. One hit there actually affected China, VEOs, and especially Hezbollah, Iran, China, and Russia in one way or another in their designs against us.
So they were
Um,
all in there. They were
they
all in
were
there,
all
Nick.
in there.
Hmm.
I had done a study back in 2010 where one of my jobs as an intel planner was actually to find new sources of intelligence for special ops. And one of the things we did was commercial intel, where we actually paid due diligence firms to go in there and expose ties between Iran and Hezbollah in Venezuela. And what we found was simply astounding. That was back in 2010 that we did that
Now, are
study.
you talking about private intelligence companies or companies that were going in and collecting intelligence from them when they returned, or both?
It was Deloitte and Touche was a due diligence company. If you're looking to do an acquisition, they go through and they look at everything: who's on the board of directors, what their connections are, etc., and come out with a overlay for you of what's going on with that company. Well,
Huh.
we contracted them through USDI to actually go in. Well, I don't know if they were on the ground in Venezuela or not. That's not my purview, but
Right.
they got significant information on business ties, both licit and illicit, between Venezuela and Iran, and a lot of the illicit activities that Hezbollah was doing on Margarita Island off the coast there.
I read some stuff and I heard that Hezbollah was on the island. I didn't have any idea what they were doing or what their capabilities were. But after I started doing a little digging in that, it really was quite significant. It was that there were area deniers in there.
Absolutely. There were 1.5 to 2 million Arabs, not Arabs, Middle Easterners that are living in Venezuela that have been there for decades, hundreds of years, even. Not hundreds, but about 100 years. It's quite a subculture that has been there. And in fact, even if you look at some of the people in power, uh, from Maduro, they're Lebanese names that were in his administration.
Huh.
One of the things we found was a lot of IRGC Quds Force from Iran, retired generals that were on the board of directors of multiple firms that were set up jointly between Iran and Venezuela.
Now, was that found out by this outsourcing that you're referring to?
I'm going, yes, at
Wow,
that
that's
time.
information.
Right. Now going back to your original question, what do you think I did of that operation? Um, Getting back to it, the nexus there between Hezbollah, Iran, China, Russia is much more thick than we really can tell. Deep connections. You've got the Ghost Fleet from Russia, which is moving oil from Iran and parts uh, to China, and Russian oil to China. That's all connected and interplayed here.
Now,
Um,
just for capabilities things, is Russia's Ghost Fleet trying to get into Cuba today? You think? Would they give that a
um,
try, or are they concerned about that blockade?
well, and that's the one, not really one of our main adversaries, but Cuba as well is very thick into this. Cuba was basically supported by the Maduro regime and cheap oil sales to Cuba, which we have an embargo on. Not only that, but the entire personal bodyguard of Maduro was either military special force, Cuban special forces, or their military intelligence folks. Um, so I mean, you've got Russians that have advisors on the ground there. You have Chinese military, and of course, economic and trade partners there. Um, it was a real nexus where, by going in and taking out Maduro and persuading the resultant government, we upset the plans of, like I said, Russia, China, and Iran in significant ways.
Well, what were some of um, the factors, some of the elements that caused us to actually go into a foreign country like that to serve a warrant? What were some of? I mean, it had to be something significant, right?
Well, I believe there's a lot of factors in play there too. It's not just the apparent that it was made out to be of drugs and reclaiming oil that, and oil infrastructure, we believe it was. The oil, a significant portion of China's oil was coming from Venezuela illegally. And by taking that source of oil out, there's a good chance that Z has to relook his plans to take Taiwan next year, which is, everybody's been looking and saying, hey, he's put out documentation.
Right.
By 2027, he wants to take over Taiwan. Well, if he doesn't control his own oil resources, which we've just kind of taken care of with this bold stroke against Venezuela, he's got to put that on hold. Not only do we have evidence, it's supposition that he's going to put it on hold, but we got evidence of a significant military restructuring in China from Z as well. That he's gone through and eliminated some of his folks with a lot of foreign experience from his administration. And, militarily, I don't know who's in charge in China right now in terms of the military, because he got rid of his former, let's say, the equivalent of the Joint Chiefs of Staff.
Do you think that has to do with what happened in Venezuela, or because maybe related to disagreements about Taiwan?
I think they're all interrelated.
Okay.
Personally, I think the Pentagon looked at it and they said they had a convergence of Chinese resource control, because Venezuela does have significant rare earth mineral wealth, as well as gold and silver and oil, that they were looking to basically kind of deny us from access to that, and solely for themselves. There was Iranian weapons manufacturing. The Iranians were shipping go-fast boats there. Geez, I think probably about 7 or 8 years ago, we had actual satellite and visual photographs of these boats on the top of freighters being shipped into Venezuela. Um, you had what we had discovered was a tractor factory back in 2010 that I believe was converted over to a drone factory.
We all know what's going on with drone warfare now is incredible.
And you had to find number one, who's using Iranian drones? Russia and Ukraine. And some of those were possibly being manufactured in Venezuela.
Mm-hmm.
So you also cut off, a portion of Russia's access to arms, as well as reducing their market for oil that was going to Venezuela. It was going to China on this ghost fleet that we've really been starting to hunt down, and got the EU joining us.
And that proximity to the United States became even a greater threat.
The proximity to the U.S. and the threat recently from Iran, we hold that Mar-a-Lago will be one of their places of retribution if Trump attacks. Mainland U.S. is actually within range of many of these weapons that have been transferred to Venezuela. So you've got a significant risk building in a country that's not that far away from us, right in our sphere of influence.
So it would be a great staging point for direct action against us.
Absolutely.
And everybody was like, now that you brought that up, everybody was saying about the Armada, the blockade that was put in the Gulf of America was primarily there to stop drug interdiction into the United States. But maybe it was more than that.
I think that's a brilliant military deception operation, personally.
You want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, I think, yes, they were going after drug smuggling, but Venezuela's contributions to drugs were nowhere near as much as what's coming through the Mexican border, which, by the way, fentanyl, most of the precursors are made in China and shipped there. There was a significant amount of drug traffic coming from Venezuela, but which is apparent by the number of direct action hits that we did with the drones.
Well, we're up there.
But I think the biggest thing was once we did pull Maduro out, what did we turn our attentions to in the Gulf of America? We turned attention to the ghost fleet and chasing down these ships that are internationally flagged, but controlled by either Russia or Iran. To where they were quickly. In fact, there was the one that actually put up a Russian flag on its hull, and Russia said, "This is our ship." And
they just painted it on, is what I read. Is that true?
They just painted it on, and said it was a Russian ship because it was controlling illicit Russian trade. Number one, the oil, but probably also bringing back some of these Iranian components that were being built in Venezuela.
They're using a lot of drones over there. The Russians are. So ships don't. When ships travel, there's cargo both ways.
There's something coming back.
That's right.
So if they got oil that they sent over, that freighter's not going to come back empty. There's going to be cargo on board.
I mean, long ago, I was looking at getting coffee out of Congo and bringing it into the United States. And we're going to send back used tires to them because they don't have tire factories there. They'll use our used tires. and they would
Hmm.
sell. So yeah, and the discussions with that was that you can't have an empty ship going back. You got to fill it with something.
Oh yeah, and I'll tell you what I saw surprisingly along West African coast. A lot of freighters coming in with brand new cars stolen from the U.S. and a lot of them sold by Hezbollah
Huh?
back into Africa. And they come out with U.S. plates on them, German
They don't
plates,
care.
you name it, rolling right off these ships.
They don't even take the plates off them.
They don't even take the plates off.
Well, that's pretty bold. That's pretty bold. Wow. And I'll bet you they're high end cars too.
They were mostly Mercedes, Land Rovers, things like that.
Right.
There was actually a Thai, uh, while I was still, I think it was right after I went to become an Intel planner with DIA in Tampa. There was a connection to a auto salvage or used car sales thing that was putting these stolen cars on ships and sending them to Africa.
Wow. I there was a Lebanese gentleman down here in uh, actually on this east coast of Florida that I knew who was in the business of buying vehicles here and sending them back. I
Hmm.
think it was back to Lebanon actually, but it was it was a legitimate business. I knew this guy, and it was a legitimate business. But to be bold enough to steal them, stick them on a ship, and send them back with the plates on, that's kind of bold.
Yeah.
It's either a real incompetency on our law enforcement and customs folks, or somebody's getting paid off.
I wouldn't doubt there's something going on, but that's what they were doing. They were making lots of money off of that as well.
Huh. So, the other thing we were talking about with the rare earth and stuff,
Yeah.
how was that working down in Venezuela? Why was that important to us?
Well, we're reliant on 12 critical minerals, rare earth minerals, for most of our advanced computing, uh, our technologies, AI, you name it, everything. And while we have some of those deposits here, not much. Greenland's another place we're looking at for the large amount of rare earth minerals. Just owning the source, though, is not the solution because you have to extract those minerals. And China was buying up control in, I think it's southwest portion of Venezuela, of
Hmm.
a lot of these rare earth minerals to keep them from us.
On the Columbia side.
Um,
Columbia side?
I believe it was. I'm not sure. I can't remember what region it was, but I mean, there's uh, cassiterite, coltan, nickel, rhodium, titanium, etc. It's they established official collection centers for these in Los. And excuse me, I'm not a Spanish speaker, although I've been to Central and South America. Los Pihuajos and Marta Calito areas.
Very good.
Um, and once again, those critical minerals, where were they going? To China and Russia, not to us.
I,
So that is one of the one of the things Trump said is we were going to relook at the defense industrial complex to make sure that we strategically were set
able
and
to get what
prepared
we need. Able to
to
get
get
what
what
we need.
we need. And
Do you think
actually, that's another reason why Venezuela was such an important location.
you know, uh, you were thinking, that the United States was telling Venezuela that, look, we want to work with you. We don't want you doing this. We want to work with. But it got to a point where they couldn't. They went in and took out Maduro, took him back to stand trial. Um, but you got to wonder, why didn't Maduro read the tea leaves on that, and why didn't he make a move? And you got to wonder if China was pressuring him, if he was stuck between a rock and a hard place with Russia, with Hezbollah, with Cuba. I mean, you said that Cuba had all of his inner circle security were
Correct.
Cubans. Were they there to protect him or to make sure he didn't get out of line? You don't
I think
know,
it
right?
was both. That's my personal opinion. But the Chinese had a big delegation there the night before that
In
Maduro
Venezuela,
was
in
taken
Caracas.
down.
In Caracas?
In Caracas, correct.
Wow, I didn't
In
know that.
fact, I think many of them were still there when the takedown occurred.
Send a little
And
message to them too, huh?
I definitely think it was a little message, especially the fact that both Russia and China were providing the anti-aircraft defense systems that we shut off. And that was a direct message, I believe, to the Chinese.
I wonder if they're the same system. Whoa. I wonder if they're the same systems that the Iranians have.
To some extent, yes. We know the Russians have been supplying them some. I'm not sure about the Chinese. It's been a while since, I mean, Iran and the Quds Force and Hezbollah specifically were main target areas that I covered throughout my career. But I, of course, do not have any current intelligence now that I've retired.
Sure.
But one of the things I have to say is I believe, and Trump announced it. He announced there were covert actions taking place in Venezuela weeks prior to the takedown of Maduro. And I believe there were significant soft Title 60, which is a nickname that we've come up with for Title 50/10 operations, where you take Title 10 assets, and the old term was sheep dipping them, with the authorities to go in and do cyber and strategic sabotage operations against these systems.
Which is the fifth generation warfare that they're talking about
Which
now, right?
is fifth generation warfare, which is something I've worked on significantly. The portion for SOF my last, I think, 4 or 5 years there, based on some of the things I knew from our plans in the Cold War against Russia. And that strategic sabotage mission is significant because it affects the decision makers as well. The fact that we turned off, I'll just put that up in quotation marks, turned off the Chinese and Russian air defense systems, which were probably being run not by Venezuelans who were there to be it, but actually, Chinese and Russian technicians, is a message to China and to Xi directly and Putin. We can do pretty much whatever we want.
In contrast, what you say, like we can shut off like your anti-aircraft systems. We could shut off your grid. We could shut. In contrast to what the Russians are doing in Ukraine, they're not shutting them off; they're smashing them, and it kind of gives you. It kind of makes you think about the sophistication between the two.
You're looking at caveman versus Einstein tactics.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. And that fifth generation warfare that they've been promoting now or talking about and actually executing it for a while. That's probably part of Space Force as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the nexus of special operations, cyber, and space really have become one of the main areas that we had worked on integrating the abilities for strategic use against great powers. Or not necessarily great, but
against anybody that could be a foe of ours.
Absolutely. I think, you know, Venezuela became a demonstration point to China, Russia, and Iran on our advanced capabilities as well.
And you and I have talked about this, a little bit off the air, and about a lot of these actions are being orchestrated, and it's coming to a crescendo. You were talking about China. I saw reports that China was taking 60 to 90% of Venezuelan oil. Now, Venezuelan oil production was down from before, when America was in there and the systems were hitting on all cylinders, so to
Right.
speak. It was what, 3 million barrels a day, and it's down to like 900,000 a day now, or something like that. But China's still taking 60 to 90%. And then, Cuba's getting their share of it as well. And they
Yep.
got their own domestic needs as well. So, and then you have Iran, who is,
Shipping a lot of their oil illegally to China.
right. And you got to, we're kind of looking right now at shutting that down too. So a lot of this, these actions that seem unrelated might be related for that one thing.
I believe, all are related.
Yeah.
One of the things actually Trump did say at one point after things were progressing is, well, and we'll sell Venezuelan oil to China as
Right.
much as they want, but we'll control it.
Yeah, like we're selling oil. We can sell it to them. I like that a lot. Which kind of an olive branch with a slap, right?
Oh, absolutely. We'll control your source, not give you enough to do what
Right,
you want to do, but
right.
enough to contain you. You're trying to contain us from rare earth. Uh, they're
Right.
mainly
Got your
pebbles.
oil. Yeah, you won't be able to process it because you won't have the energy to process it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think it was a masterful move. I talked with another guest a while ago, and they were saying that this was kind of orchestrated as well. Um, and they said the same. They confirmed what you just said about that. It's a master move. That what he's doing
Oh,
right now.
brilliant master move, and to me it's so strategically what SOF should be doing. Tactical actions with strategic uh, after effects.
Right.
What was it we used to say? I think tactical actions with strategic effect. And I think that's what you saw here, was a small and limited action, but from it spun off so many strategic implications against multiple adversaries.
And what's interesting about it is I believe that I mean it's been going on for a long time, but I think it started to hit critical mass when Trump put the tariffs on China in his first term. And
Mm-hmm.
when those tariffs went on there, no, I'm sorry, in the second term, but he was talking about it in his first, I believe. And in the second term, he threw them on, and China was in there, but China's response, I believe, could have been the collection of those rare earths down there. You're gonna hit us with this. We're gonna take your rare earths,
Right.
and then
That
then
was
the master stroke.
the Chinese counter to the tariffs,
Right.
which was the rare earth metals. Well,
Yeah.
okay,
The
most of them
hoarding
are
of it.
actually, when you refine them down, lithium, cobalt, etc. They're metals.
Right. And you look at you just look at and this is just trying to figure out your players. Um, Trump recently they tried to take away his ability to run the tariffs. The Supreme Court did not give a favorable reading on that. But understand China should understand their enemy. And China, when they told him that, Trump immediately put 10% more on, which is
Mm-hmm.
sending a message, to anybody that I'm still in charge here. We're going to figure out another way to do it. and we'll be within the law. But we're still going to hit you with a
Well,
nuclear
and
bomb.
that's I believe that was already taken care of because
Yeah,
only that one source of tariff authorizations did they rule were not constitutional. He has two or three other authorities that he's working as well that were not affected by that decision.
and then you bump them 10% just to send that yen to him.
I do
I thought I
believe.
saw. I thought he saw he bumped them like 10% to tell him, hey, we're gonna continue.
Yeah.
I I don't like this one, but I'm not done with you yet. And I like that gangsta thing.
Well, I mean, the reality, as we well know, is we sit here in America and everything's so civilized and wonderful, but it's out there in the third world. It's, you know, it's man eat man. It's
It's
savage.
even
It's
in the second world. Yeah,
even in the
it,
second world.
yeah.
It's competitive as all get out, and the weak do not rise to the top.
I I mean, I started going to Africa in 2007, and even back then, we knew that we needed rare earths, we needed certain minerals. There was a lot of riches there. There was a lot of opportunity. There was oil there, diamonds, gold, blah blah blah, and we weren't there. And when I was my first time there was in Congo, and they kept saying to me the whole time, why isn't America here? Why are you allowing the Chinese here? And I was
Hmm.
like, well, I don't know if we can control that, but it's a good question. There's a lot of
Yeah,
opportunity.
I was in the Congo a few times back in the 90s, and it really surprised me as well. Um, they wanted us there, and these were a couple. Well, one of the missions was a fifth group JSET MTT, and it was a huge Chinese presence. In fact, they actually had our Halo team divert from doing a demo for their Independence Day in Kolwezi and had them land on the airfield over at Kamina for a Chinese general, the French, who actually manned their parachute battalion with either XOs or as commanders with Zawa at the time or Congolese, aide de camps and stuff, and they said, no, change that and come over here and jump on Kamina Airfield.
Huh.
Well, back in the 90s, Kamina Airfield was also being used to help supply UNITA with Joseph Entebbe,
Yeah.
I think it was, that was going against the Cuban incursions there in
Angola?
Angola.
Yeah.
That didn't work out too well when our guys landed
Right.
on the field because nobody informed the security guards.
Wow. Oh, wow.
But anyway, communist China was there at the time.
Yeah, we were.
We were still doing it, but after that, too many Leahy violations kept us out of the Congo.
With this new stuff that's spinning up in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, and one of the great threats, not great threats, one of the threats we have to consider is those fast boats that the Iranians are using. I suspect they're the same ones probably that were down off of Margarita Island. I would think,
Yes,
and and
yes,
and they had like missile tubes that were like
yes, they did.
stacked three deep on both sides,
Yep.
and
Hmm.
I
That was one of the distinguishing marks from the imagery that you could pick out to know what it was.
huh. And wasn't I mean they were using an ordinance of was it a CM 90 or something like that? I think it was called uh, that had like a 55 mile. I think it was 55 miles, or was it 120-mile range? Uh,
Let me check my notes here.
and those boats looked like they were capable of going, you know, 250 miles out and 250 miles back.
Well, I mean, easily. If you look at Cuba being about halfway, you just had that fast boat
Well, the
with
Cuba
Americans on
refueled.
board that got shot up in Cuba. That was, that's just a half-day trip from the Keys.
Right.
Oh, yeah, CM-90 is the anti-ship missiles of their Nasser system. 55-mile range, and they travel 760 miles per hour using active radar guidance. Those were built on the old Chinese silkworm
Oh,
model.
really?
They're derivatives of the old
I did not
silkworm,
know
if
that.
you remember back from the
Yeah,
Gulf
yeah,
War.
yeah. They were the silkworms were what they were putting up to choke down that strait. They were putting them actually land
Right.
based them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you know when you so what they that the activities of Hezbollah on that island basically was an area denier for I don't know about for our Navy, but definitely gave us some concern. But those drones were also another concern. You weren't going through there if you
Yeah.
weren't battle ready. You weren't just cruising through there. You were ready to fight
Right.
if you were going through there. Am I correct on that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the way it's been, and we've had to be basically at battle stations anytime they go through the Straits of Hormuz. In fact, right now, you don't see our military
Right.
armada that's building up there going up into the Arabian or Persian Gulf. They're staying down below,
I saw
avoiding that choke
I
point.
saw one situation map where a destroyer went up through there because some of those fast boats tried to mess with a U.S. flag
Yes,
tanker, and that dude went in
right.
after him.
Yes, yes, they did. And, I believe there are special technical ways we have of protecting our ships from those guys. Um, but
I also, as much as bravado is out there right now with chest thumping, they don't really want to. They really don't want to open that can of whoop ass either right yet.
Well, they know that it's probably going to, especially now with the student the protests going on again, it's probably going to be the end of the regime. When you look how much money that Iran was, I mean, the economy is shot, and that's why people are protesting.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the amount of money that they were giving to Hezbollah, to Hamas, to these anti-U.S. Shia militia groups in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars that they were diverting from their home
Right.
economy overseas with the Quds Force to develop all these proxies. So the people are pretty upset with that theocratic government because the money was being exported. It wasn't helping their economy one bit.
Right. I kind of like the same effects. What's happening with us with money being spent for illegal aliens and stuff too. There's a lot of money being uh, wasted and used on that. Something that we shot ourselves in the foot with. You agree?
Well, absolutely, yeah, and we can't afford that kind of fraud, waste, and abuse. A lot of it is, I believe, fraud, because it's a major drain
Right.
on our ability to defend ourselves. And I think when you look at some of this stuff, I think you're going to find
Maybe it was states.
that there were connections there from overseas influences as
Right.
well, taking advantage of these fraud schemes.
Yeah, one of the other things that we haven't talked about with Venezuela yet is the Russian advisors down there. There was I read reports
Hmm.
that there was probably 120, and they were down there doing integrating their military, I guess, with Chinese and and Russian air defenses and some of their, I guess, other parts of their military. What can you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, you had the Russian advisors there, and we remember the old Soviet advisor system. In fact, the one point that we get out is during the Korean War when the Russian pilots uh, just jumped out and attacked the U.S. Uh, flight there, where the older guy, I forgot his name, Royce, Captain Royce, got finally his uh, Medal of Honor for,
Right.
because it was all top secret that we took down Russian advisors flying combat missions in Korea. And this is just the way they operate. So you had advisors that were probably the real operators of most of those systems for anti-aircraft defense, but they also provided infantry, drone operations, special forces training, military and signal intelligence, armor, aircraft, artillery, and the contributed to the domestic surveillance infrastructure that they used in Venezuela to keep track of the population and the folks who didn't necessarily agree.
Right. Wow. So it was a little bit.
And you can imagine China had about the same type of things too.
China was in there as well with the doing advisors as well.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We know there were, like I said, there were Chinese military present there when the takedown of Maduro happened.
I wonder if they couldn't function either after whatever they used disabled everybody. You never know. But it would be nice for them to take it back with them, right?
We can only speculate.
That's right. We can only speculate. That's for sure.
I will say that there were some significant technical advances that we've been making in terms of soft acquisition over the last probably 10 years. Really amazing stuff. And I think our capabilities have, well, we're hearing bits and pieces of it, not only, with the shutting off of the anti-aircraft systems, but also the
witness report.
I forgot what the word. The discombobulator array,
and
as Trump called it.
And those witness reports that came back out where they were claiming that they were totally incapable of moving and that these guys were just taking them out in large numbers, and it was a small amount of.
Well, and you can imagine that is something, that the applications of that technology, something like that, what a boon it is for JSOC operations.
Sure.
If you think about it, if you can bring the enemy to his knees just before you come in, it's a lot safer for you going through that door.
Absolutely. And if you can send a robot through it, do it.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, we're looking now at the possibility of something happening with Iran. You just said it a minute ago that it's inevitable. It's probably going to go now. I believe.
Yeah, the meetings ended without an agreement. I just talked to a friend who was in Israel for the last couple of weeks, and
it's going to happen.
We believe something's going to happen.
Maybe I can get you to come back on and talk about Iran with me after we see what happens there.
Absolutely, would love to.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I especially appreciate, since this is the second time we tried today, that can-do attitude, we will get it done. You still got it there, Sarge. You still got it. Thank you so much, Nick. And
okay, thank you, guys. Have a great one.
You too, buddy. Thanks again.